Welcome to the Butterfly Effect. I'm Chris Horner. This is Dwars Vlaanderen 2023. Now 183 kilometers, about 115 miles in length. Today's classic is not massive in distance, and so that keeps the competition a little bit closer when you're talking about fighting through all these kilometers. 19 big obstacles on today's race, 11 bergs out there, and then you got cobblestone sections. Little bit of wind, but in general, there's almost nothing out there. I saw some flags moving a little bit, but not a whole lot. I'm sure if you're one of the riders in the race, though, you probably disagree with me because that enough to make the flags move is enough to hurt guys, especially if you've been in the breakaway all day long. Now, as we get into the race, the commentators start talking about the big discussion at Gent-Wevelgem with Christophe Laporte's gift from Wout van Aert. Now, there's been some gossip going around calling it Giftgate. And of course, on Cycling News, you saw Eddie Merckx complain that I would never give away a victory such as Gent-Wevelgem. Tom Boonen jumped in there, and Johan Maseyu jumped in there too. And I'm here to jump in the opposite way. I think for Wout van Aert to gift it to a teammate such as Christophe Laporte is an amazing thing. I always really appreciated those moments in sports when you're bonding with your teammate like that, and I could see no better way to appreciate the bike racing than to give away a big victory to a teammate. Now, I'm not expecting to give away at Tour de France. I'm not expecting to give away one of the monuments. If you're a rider that can win those kind of races, though, giving away Gent-Wevelgem doesn't mean much to me. I don't think if you can win Tour of Flanders come this Sunday and you got Christophe Laporte back there riding 100% for you. Now, I got to remind some of those guys when you're talking Merckx, Boonen, Johan Maseyu, who just say that it's too important and you might regret it later in your career. Well, if it's too important, Tom, why not stay out of the nightclubs, keep the form a little bit better, and then win a couple other big races, semi-classics like Gent-Wevelgem later on in your career, or just race long enough till you're older like I did at 42 and you win your Grand Tour at 42 instead of retiring earlier. There's lots of ways to add those victories to your career, but I don't think taking one from your teammate is a good way to do it. If you guys remember right when we saw Strade Bianche in the women's race, when Demi Vollering and Lotte Kopecky came to the line and they sprinted each other, I said I didn't like it at all, and that's because when you're teammates and you're going one-on-one to the finish, if you start sprinting yourself, okay, if Christophe Laporte is going to try to beat Wout van Aert, you're not going to wait to the sprint. You're going to attack the guy a long time before that. You're going to make him pull everywhere, and then you're going to jump him someplace. So the chemistry in the team, guys, it just doesn't work. Gifting riders like Christophe Laporte, like Giftgate, if you want to call that, again, I think is ridiculous. The most important thing is team chemistry. And the most important thing is when you can win the big races, that your rider, your teammate, your friend, your companion on the team is always there to help you in the big races. And we know come Sunday on Tour of Flanders, Wout van Aert is going to have an amazing Christophe Laporte riding 100% in support of the big guy. Now, let's get into the racing because it's 95 kilometers to go. We have 6 guys in the front group. Yevgeny Gidic from Astana's there. Lascano from Movistar. He's going to put on a show today. Leon Heinschke from DSM. Alexander Kristoff, the sprinter from UNO-X. Nikola Zukowski's in there from Q36, and Wout van Aert from Team Flanders is in there to round out 6 guys in the front group. Maximum lead they had today, 3.5 minutes, but when the cameras come on, it's about 2:30. And when we go back to the peloton, we see Trek Segafredo curb to curb. They're 5-6 guys curb to curb with 95 kilometers to go, and the racing isn't going full gas. I don't understand what they're doing up here. This is a strange tactics. The commentators on GCN, they don't understand, and they're trying to explain it to you guys, and they're saying, well, this is old school racing. Throughout my career, I haven't seen this kind of racing as old school racing. What Trek's doing is something different. What GCN commentators are trying to explain to you is that when the teams would come to the front and control it and then get on the gas in certain sections and shut it off, that wasn't exactly what's happening today. Trek Segafredo's, they're they're going super slow up the climbs when they should be drilling it if they want to make the race hard. And then on the flat sections, they're going super hard, but the speeds are fast on the flat section, right? So you know the guys back there can get a draft, the top guys. Now, sure, when we look at the peloton and it's all strung out over the top of the climb because they're going full gas in a slight crosswind and a slightly downhill, and you got a full team on the front, of course the peloton's going to be strung out. And of course, the back of the peloton's going to be broken up because we have a lot of quality riders missing because they're getting ready for Tour of Flanders, right? So the quality of the field's going to be a little bit watered down. You don't have the big GC guys here because they're off getting ready for the Basque Country and they just got done finishing Catalonia. And you got a lot of the other better guys waiting and saving some form for when they get in the Tour of Flanders. So the back of the field splitting up right here with Trek Segafredo on the front, going full gas on the flats. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me because they're just pulling everyone along, and that's why you haven't seen Jumbo-Visma on the front. Now Trek will slow down, everything will bunch back up, they'll go up the next climb curb to curb, blocking the road, and then they're going to do the same thing again, stringing out the peloton. Now, when we start getting into the next climb, this is when things get interesting because all of a sudden we see it is Soudal Quickstep on the front as they're flying into the cobblestone climb. And then we see Julian Alaphilippe attack. Only problem is for the Frenchman, he's going to have some chain issue. He's going to slow up, and then we're going to see Trek Segafredo keep the attack momentum going. Julian Alaphilippe will figure out the gear problem and he'll jump back onto the back of that. Now let's go to the back of the peloton because as the climb started, it narrowed up with the fencing there, and Tim Miller, Soudal Quickstep sprinter, goes down and crashes. We see all the riders and they really can't get by very fast. I don't really like the fencing on the cobblestones. I know why they do it, to keep the riders off the smooth dirt part so that they force to ride the cobbles. But this is the problem when you fence in a really narrow section. The riders have no place to go behind. And so when we get up to the top, there's some action and happen up there because we see Christophe Laporte up around that front group of riders here at Dwars Vlaanderen. But behind, it's going to cause some chaos because with Tim Miller back there, of course, it's blocking up the road. Now, going up over that climb, I again saw Julian Alaphilippe at the top throwing in attack, and I'm sitting there wondering, wow, you got Tim Miller back there, your sprinter that's crashed. Maybe right now is not a good time to attack when they just got done going up the cobblestone climb. If you can bring your teammate back up, your sprinter, Tim Miller, one of the top sprinters in the European peloton, that could possibly win a race of this quality, especially at only 183 kilometers long. You got to imagine that Soudal Quickstep needs all their guys together. But instead, Julian Alaphilippe was throwing in attacks all the way up this climb while Tim Miller was back there picking up his bike. Now, up front, when we get into the next climbs, I told you Jumbo-Visma was a bit active, but once we get into the next climb, it's going to start coming apart. As we see up front, it's Tosh van der Sen. He's throwing down for Tish Benoot on the wheel. Now, Tosh van der Sen, he's done, and Tish Benoot throws in his attack, and we see Julian Alaphilippe suffering big time. Soudal Quickstep, he can't hold the wheel up there and close the gap up to Tish Benoot. But guess what? As we start looking a little bit closer, Quentin Hermans, Albacine, de Koenig, he's holding on, and then we see Palace there. Now they'll split off as they can't hold the wheel up there of Tish Benoot because Jumbo-Visma's throwing in a solo attack. He will back off over the top. The three riders will come back. And then we start seeing a magical combination come together because 8 riders are going to form over the top of this climb. Jumbo-Visma is going to get one more in there, and it's going to be Christophe Laporte, last weekend's Gent-Wevelgem winner. Now, EF Education, I said Palace is there, and he's going to get Mikel Honoré in there. And then FDJ is going to get not one but 2 guys because Lauren Madois and Stefan Kuhn made it in there. Ineos had some help because they had Jonathan Narvaez that made it into this front group, and he's got a little bit of speed up there. And then, like I said, with the Albacine, the Koenig rider, Quentin Hermans, that rounds out 8 guys in this front group. But Jonathan Narvaez and Quentin Hermans, they don't want to work in this group, of course, because Jumbo-Visma have 2 riders in there, and one is Christophe Laporte, who's definitely on form, regardless whether if you believe or not, he got gifted that win at Gent-Wevelgem. If you can follow Wout van Aert, you know you got some form, even if the big guy's throttling down just a little bit for you, because who else was on that wheel, right? So Narvaez, he backs off and always sitting at the back of the group. Quentin Hermans is sitting on because he's got a sprinter back there, Jasper Philipsen, in the second group. Now we go back to the second group back there, which is really the third group, excuse me, because I forgot about the breakaway of 6 up there that was blowing up all over the place on the earlier climbs. But when we go back to that third group, it's Lotto Destiny back there that's chasing. Now they got full gas and they got 4 guys in the front on the front there because they have their sprinter, Arnold DeLee, in there, and he wants a shot here at winning Dwars, Vlaanderen. Up front now, when we start seeing that original group of 6 that started blowing up on the earlier climbs, now we start seeing as the gap gets down to about 30 seconds, this is when we see Lascano. He throws in attack. He's getting hard on the pedals, and he's going to break it down to 3 guys in this front group. Alexander Kristoff's holding on, the sprinter for X, but he's going to pull through and do some massive work up there. And then we see Leon from DSM as he rounds out 3 guys in this front. Behind, as I said, the gap got down to about 30 seconds with those 8 chasers, but with 2 riders sitting on, it's making the chemistry back there a little uncomfortable. So the gap isn't coming down. That was 30 seconds. It's actually kind of extending out to about 40 seconds. And then in what I'll consider the peloton back there, Lotto Destiny's getting no help. Just 4 guys riding on the front, even though Trek Segafredo in there have 3 riders and started all this action with 90 kilometers to go. We look at Soudal Quickstep. They got at least 2 riders in there, and Julian Alaphilippe's one of them, but they don't have a pure sprinter because, like I said, Julian Alaphilippe drilled it up the cobblestone climb and left Tim Miller on the ground. Now we start looking at other teams. There's some action because UAE Team Emirates, who tried to send them across the gap, Matteo Trentin that is, he tried to go across this gap but then fell and had to go back to the group. So now UAE Team Emirates have 3 guys in this group, but still nobody's giving Lotto Destiny any help up front. Now we start looking. It starts getting painful for the group of 3 up there, and they're digging hard. We're going to come into about 30 kilometers to go. There's a left turn, and they're going to start the cobblestones right after this left. It's about a 900-meter section of cobblestones, and we look at the 3 leaders up front whose gap is just getting narrower and narrower as we saw before the left. You could see the 2 groups behind almost coming together, and the second group was just there at about 25 seconds on the 3 riders starting this cobblestone section. We see Lascanzo, who goes over to the left because he's trying to take the smoothest road possible. This is a bad choice for the Movistar rider as we see him bunny hop one of the ditches, one of the holes with the water and mud down below. He'll bunny hop that. But if you're sitting second and third wheel like Alex and Leon are from DSM, they can't see this, and they're going to catch it late. I can tell you by experience, it's very difficult to see around a big guy like Lascanzo from Movistar. So after Lascanzo jumped, it was Alexander Kristoff that had to catch some air. He does and misses the hole. And then somehow, to my disbelief, Leon from DSM manages to get up over the hole and clear it with a bunny hop. But as you look at the picture, he's gapped off just a little bit there from Alexander Kristoff's wheel. Up front, Lascanzo still throwing in hard. You'll see him dodging some more holes. And then you'll see Alexander Kristoff put his bike into a massive rut and somehow does not flat. This was not a good choice, Lascanzo. It wasn't your wisest and most intelligent decision here at Dwars, Vlaanderen to go the left side of the road. But Alexander Kristoff comes out of it. Then they'll hop back on the cobblestones. But they're left without the DSM rider. I don't know what happened to him. I assume he had to gap off to be able to see some holes. Didn't have the legs and then blew up. And he'll end up going back to that group of 8 chasers. And later he'll get dropped out of those guys. But up front, again, Lascanzo takes the right side of the road, jumps off the dirt and onto the cobblestone as we see Alexander Kristoff cutting it a little bit tight as he's coming up onto the cobblestones. And then those guys are going full gas with only 2 riders in the front because Leon, like I said, has been dropped. Behind, what's happening? Well, in the peloton, they started getting some help back there from UAE Team Emirates to narrow up that gap before that cobblestone section. And then once they got into the cobblestone section, guess what? Tim Wellens decided he could go across this 20-second gap up to the group of 8 up there. That's becoming 9 soon. And Tim Wellens, UAE Team Emirates, he gets halfway out there, realizes he can't make the gap. It's now at about 25 kilometers to go. Tim Wellens starts looking backwards and getting on the radio, and he's telling his boys, I can't do it. I ain't going to make it. Please come get me. I need some help. So he sits up. He goes back to the group, And we look at the guys of 8 that have become 9 with the DSM rider there. They're getting closer and closer to the front duo up there of Alexander Kristoff and Lascanzo. Now those guys are suffering. You'll see Lascanzo look over at Alexander Kristoff a couple times throughout the finish here as we see nothing but pain on the face of the Movistar rider, but he's still throwing in effort every place he can as the gap starts narrowing and narrowing with about 7 kilometers to go. You look at the picture, the group of 8 guys back there who have now dropped the DSM rider Leon. He's going back to the next group. That group of 8 now is getting right on the heels up there of the 2 guys in front. And then with 6 kilometers to go, they got them wrapped up. Now we got a group of 10 riders up front. But guess what? The group behind, it was starting to get exciting. All of a sudden, Jaco Alula got on the front because they have Michael Matthews, their sprinter back there. They started pulling. Quick Step started pulling there. Julian Alaphilippe, one of his teammates on the front, so they got into it, and the gap started getting narrower and narrower. But under 10 kilometers to go, we started seeing Lotto Sudolf start to fall off the back with their first rider, and then shortly after him, Tim Wellens comes off the back. Tim Wellens, who was going across to that front group, now can't hold even the group that he's with that called the Peloton as he's coming off the back. And then we see Frederic Frison from Lotto Sudol start to drop off. When we look at the front of the Peloton, there's no more Lotto at the front. It's UAE Team Emirates going into the left turn. That's now leading the Peloton, trying to bring back those group of 10 up the road. Now we get just about 5 kilometers to go. It's Jumbo-Visma's Tish Benoot up there, and he's got Mikhail Honore, EF Education, Lauren Madouas in that group to put 3 guys in the front group. We look at the very last group out of that group of 10 there. You see Christophe Laporte. He's getting a free ride, right? Right in front of him's EF Education, Nielsen Palace. Palace looks over his shoulder. He realizes he's pulling Christophe Laporte up there to Mikhail Honore, so he's going to swing off hard left, and Christophe Laporte's going to be still getting a free ride because next rider up in front is going to pull him, still giving the Frenchman a good draft. As you look up front, now Tish Benoot's on the front of the group, right? It's all starting to come up, the first half of the group of 10 as they're starting to come together. All of a sudden, Benoot's looking left over his shoulder, and he's like, I need Christophe Laporte here. Backs off the throttle. At the same time he's backing off the throttle, Christophe Laporte's leaving the last group and bridging up to this front group. Tish Benoot will drop back to the back group as Christophe Laporte's flying up to this group. He'll swing hard to the left, throw an attack with about 4.5 kilometers to go. The Frenchman's doing a solo flyer here at Dwars, Vlaanderen, trying to win spectacularly for Jumbo-Visma, who's won everything up here at the Spring Classics so far in this 2023 season. We look behind, a few little games being played back there as Christophe Laporte's gaps keeps growing. Under 3 kilometers to go, 2 kilometers to go. It's still growing. Now we look back. There's 2 guys getting a flyer back there. Lascanzo from Movistar's going up the road, and he's got Nielsen Palace with him. But the gap up to Christophe Laporte under 1K to go is too big. The Frenchman's going to fly through the last right-hand turn with 300 meters to go. Realize he's got Dwars, Vlaanderen won, and continuing the domino effect of destruction on the whole Peloton that Jumbo-Visma's delivering up here in the Classics as he solos to the victory here at Dwars, Vlaanderen. Now let's just back the film up just a little bit as he started to celebrate, looking backwards, then looking forward as he starts doing the Jumbo-Visma sign across the chest in celebration. We look at the picture behind the 2 chasers. Lascanzo, who has been in the original break all day long today and got caught with 6 kilometers to go, with Nielsen Palace riding in front of him. The Peloton, which had absorbed all of the other chasers, at this moment are hot on the heels there of Lascanzo coming into 200 meters to go. He's going to accelerate off of Palace's wheel and take it all the way into the line to get second here at Dwars, Vlaanderen. Nielsen Palace, the American rider for EF Education, will round out the podium. And as the Peloton caught the last guys of the chase there that was originally 10, now as they wrap those guys back up, it's a field sprint back there, and it's going to be Jasper Philipsen, Albacine de Koonik that'll come through first for the Peloton sprint. Hot on his wheels, Mads Pedersen, Trek Segafredo that started all this chaos, and then their team blew up. And then behind Mads Pedersen is going to be Lotto Destiny holding on for 6th on today's Dwars, Vlaanderen, and will be Arnold de Ligt. fabulous race today. Super, super, super good. If you guys remember last year's race, it was total chaos when Matthew van der Poel won. Today was much the same with Trek Segafredo starting all the action. Make sure you guys find some time to go back and watch the whole 95 kilometers because it was well worth it here at today's Dwars door Vlaanderen. And when we're talking about Tour of Flanders, afterwards in the post-race conversation, Christophe Laporte, he was asked about Flanders coming up. He says, of course, we're all in for the big guy, Wout van Aert, no doubt about that. When we look at Stefan Kuhn, he says a few days race, he'll be ready to go for Flanders. Tish Benut's interview, he says he hopes he's 100% healthy because earlier in today's Dwars door Vlaanderen, he told Christophe Laporte, I'll work for you here at Dwars door Vlaanderen. So he's hoping to be 100% healthy because he said he felt a little bit off in today's race. And then, of course, when we look at Lascanzo's interview, the Movistar rider, he is ear to ear smiling because he knows second here at Dwars door Vlaanderen is a great result for Movistar. One other interview left is that of Alexander Kristoff, who was all smiles after the race in the interview. He said he's a little disappointed they didn't make it to the end, of course, because it's a hard blow getting caught at 6 kilometers to go. But the whole reason he was in there earlier in the X meeting, he had talked about how easy it was to be in the break on the earlier races that they had done here before Dwars door Vlaanderen. So his X director threw out the challenge, if it's that easy, Alexander Kristoff, go ahead and put yourself in the break. He did put on a show for all of us leading up there with Lascanzo. They made it all the way to 6 kilometers to go. Make sure you guys appreciate what those two riders did at the front. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next edition real soon.